Two University of Rio Grande women's soccer players will compete in the Women's Copa America 2018, and we'll also speak with River State's Conference Commissioner Michael Schell. All that and much more as this edition of Eye on the Storm comes next. Hi again and welcome to the latest edition of Eye on the Storm. I'm Randy Payton, the Sports Information Director here at the University of Rio Grande, joined by Athletic Director Jeff Lanham. We have a action-packed show today, a lot of stuff to get to, and actually, all kidding aside, some pretty good stuff involving our women's soccer program.
That is right, Randy, and we look forward to getting into that. That's going to be a fun time for some Rio women's soccer playing around the world, so it's going to be very interesting here today.
And to help us with that, we've got head coach Tony Daniels in studio today, and we appreciate him joining us. And Tony, it involves a couple of your players who are from the country of Ecuador, and as we said in the intro, they are part of the Ecuadorian national team. It's participating in the 2018 Copa America, the senior women's division, and a pretty good honor for your two players.
Correct. You know, back when I started the women's program back 2.5 years ago, I was fortunate enough to land a national team goalkeeper in regards to Andrea Vieira. A little bit about the country and about her. The first time they qualified for the World Cup was back in 2015. The Women's World Cup has been going on since 1991. So it's been played 7 times, and it happens just like the Men's World Cup every 4 years, and it plays on.
There's Andrea on the screen right now.
Correct. So they were ranked 46th in the world back in 2014. Right now they are not currently ranked, but it was fortunate enough to bring her on board. She came along, and the next thing I know, she knew someone that was on the team, and come to this year, we have another Ecuadorian player named of Ambar Torres, who is the number 10 or an attacking midfield that plays for the country of Ecuador. Currently, this semester, Andrea has been in training camp since January, and Ambar has just left us, I think, 2 weeks ago to go back with the team to train in Quito, which is it's a city, it's the capital of Ecuador. To train for the Copa America. They'll be leaving here, I think, in the next week to go to Chile. And it's fortunate enough that where they're going to be playing is in the town called Quicambo, which is in Chile, about 5 hours north of Santiago. And in their grouping, they will play Venezuela, they'll play Brazil, they'll play Argentina, and they'll play Bolivia. And I think in order for them to advance, they'll need to win 2 of those games and go from there. Now, overall, and I'm sure you'll hit on this, the Copa America is set up. This is it's a pre-test for the World Cup. So there's international games going on around the world at this current time. And in order for Ecuador to qualify again, they have to either win the Copa America or become in second place. And then there's also an outside chance if they come in third that they can still qualify to go to the World Cup in 2019, which would be in France.
And like I said, this is something that, particularly at an NAIA school, it doesn't happen every day that you have a couple of players. You know, one is quite an honor. To have 2 is big time.
Correct. And I think America is the forefront in women's soccer itself. If you go back through the Women's World Cup since 1991, they've won it 3 times. I think Germany twice, Japan once, I think China might be in there, and Norway. And like I said, I think America is the forefront, but at our particular college, it's very difficult to get in a national team player from the U.S. here. And I think if you're on the national team, you are of some magnitude a very good athlete or a very good soccer player. And I think those two not only have the qualities of soccer, but just who they are in general, academically, off the field. They're what we're about here at the university.
So Randy, Tony, tell us about these individual players, just some highlights about what their skills are and what they bring to your team this next year.
Well, Ambar, or I'll start with Dre. Dre came in.
She's been there.
She has been here 2 other years.
2 years.
She's gained 3 years of eligibility. She was held against the 1 year because she's played in the World Cup and Pan Am Games. But she brings a seasoned veteran attitude to the team itself. She is my leader that I want on and off the field. She has world soccer amongst her. And she's been brought up in a particular school. Her English was very, very well, and she and myself and the team and this university was an awesome fit. And she sort of grabbed the bull by the horn, so to speak, with what I was trying to implement with my team since taking over.
She kind of got just dropped into your lap.
Yes,
didn't she?
it was a week before school started. She was going to go to another school, and it didn't work out. A friend of mine that has told me about her, she called me and basically said, "Hey, would you like to have her?" And I said, "Yes, I would."
Well, let me think about it, right?
So after our first year, recruiting as a coach, it's awesome, but it's also the players recruit for you, as in any sport. If you have a very good player and you run a very good system and there's quality about you, your players recruit the other players for you. She knew of another person named Ambar Torres. A couple negatives is she didn't speak very good English. We're fortunate enough here with our school. We have ESL, English as a second language, the classes, and she's come in and she has been a breath of fresh air as well. Not only of her ability to play the game, but also just her whole aura. It's been unfortunate this year she couldn't play for us because she was ineligible due to what she's done back in Ecuador, but she had the fortune of practicing with Scott Morsey in the men's team, and she holds her own, which I think that's great for her, and I appreciate everything that Scott's done as well. It's been a bond. We're trying to grow these two programs together, and this is my next phase.
So she has 2 years.
She has 2 years of eligibility, correct?
Right.
And I think anybody that knows anything regarding the Rio men's soccer program, what they've really been able to accomplish with the use of international players, and I know obviously this is another step or another rung on the ladder, so to speak, for your women's program, if you can continue to add players, particularly players of this level.
Correct. And, I am going to be going down to watch 3 out of the 5 or 4 games that Dre and Amber are going to be playing, and I'm using it as a recruiting tool too. So I'm going to meet the coaches. I want to get to know where they come from, how are they operating, and not just only Ecuador, but also Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, and Bolivia, the teams that are going to be at that stadium that I'm going to be at.
You're staying with an alum, too, right?
I am staying with an alum, Pato Arce, who is originally from Santiago, Chile, played 4 years for me here, and he finished his career with the national championship in 2015. And he is going to be my escort, so to speak, to make sure that I get through the country.
Maybe even a translator or two.
A translator, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it, very, very much so.
Quickly, your thought. You said Ecuador, the team was not ranked. Their chances of being one of those 2 teams that moves on to the World Cup?
I think it's with anything. It's what you bring in the day of the game itself. I think it's going to be a very demanding schedule. They play on April the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th. So in any sport, you're back to back to back to back. That's very demanding, especially in the era that they are. I do think that they will advance. I don't think they'll be the top. I think the top will be Brazil. And I think they're either going to be the second or the third team. So,
well, have fun while you're down there. Good luck to those ladies.
And congratulations. I mean,
yeah.
that's a congratulations for the program, for yourself, and
for the school.
And for it's very good.
Thank you very much.
All right, congratulations again. That's Tony Daniels, the head women's soccer coach here at the University of Rio Grande. River States Conference has a new commissioner, Michael Schell. He actually officially just took the reins of that position, earlier this week?
Wednesday of this week.
Okay,
yes.
so today.
21st. It was last week. It was on the
Wednesday.
21st, March the 21st.
He was here. He was here though for a visit during one of the women's basketball conference tournament games, and paid us a brief visit at halftime. And I had a chance to sit down and chat with him. And if we can, let's hear from the new conference commissioner, Michael Shell.
Enjoying what is a great game.
What was the position of commissioner, and as it came open, and what drew your interest?
Well, part of it too is the Cascade Conference that we were a part of is very similar to the River States. We offer very similar sports. River States has tennis. The Cascade does not. We have a pretty large footprint. We have public schools and private schools and faith-based schools, small schools, large schools. So, just the feel was right about the position. I've known Scott McClure for years and stuff, talked with him and talked with several of my mentors and a couple other commissioners, and I just felt like it was a good move for me.
And you inherit a conference that, quite frankly, is on much better ground now after the previous regime with Scott McClure, as you mentioned, than Scott actually inherited. I guess that has to make it a little bit easier.
Yes, and we went through this as a Cascade Conference. We made the move to a full-time commissioner about, I think it was in 2005, so about 13 years ago. So we're a little bit farther advanced than in the Cascade Conference, but hopefully the experience of having gone through that move, I've already seen kind of where we're at, and I have some ideas on where I think we need to go next. It's always a challenge, there's finances and just organizational culture that's different, and that's what I'm partly here for. Is I came out house hunting, but I also came out to attend these games and get an idea of the culture and meet some people, and it's a lot to take in at first.
You kind of mentioned, I guess, getting settled in terms of having a house that's job number one, as they're giving away prizes down there. That's job number one, but what's on the top of your checklist for what do you do when you finally get settled in the office?
I am planning on being on all 13 campuses. I want to meet with every chancellor and president, athletic directors, sports information, athletic trainers, and coaches. So I've kind of in my mind formulated this plan where this spring will get on all 13 campus so that I can get a feel for, like I said, the culture of the conference, and hopefully there will be some common themes that come out of those meetings on where we need to go. For instance, just in talking with the athletic trainers today, there is no set written approved guidelines for athletic trainers in our conference. And so that is an important initiative for me to get that finalized.
And there you got a piece of our interview with Michael Shell, the new commissioner of the River States Conference. As we said, that came 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was here for a visit during the semifinal round of the women's basketball conference tournament, and that kind of leads us into our next segment, talking about the women's basketball team. They made the national tournament. We had Coach Smalley on last month. Played Morningside, unfortunately came up short, 97 to 68 in the tournament out there in Iowa, and sure, you would have liked to have seen them win, Jeff, but nonetheless, getting there, that's a big part of the deal.
It is, and you have to give the girls credit. I mean, the idea of their total wins this year, winning the conference outright, winning the conference tournament, so they had a very good year, and the idea of
There's a great shot by Justa Stout, who somehow got her way up on the catwalk above the Tyson Event Center and took that shot of the opening tip of the game.
Right, and that's fantastic. And that's Alexis Payne there is winning the tip, I think. It's what it looks like. She's winning the tip. And it's a beautiful facility where they played, and Morningside was the host school, so it wasn't where they played their home games, but they were very familiar with the surrounding area. They slept in their beds the night before. Had a lot of people there. You were there for the games. There was a lot of Morningside people. Tough actually
Tough
a
environment to play in.
tough draw for us. One of the highest seeds we've ever had going into the tournament. I think we were a 5 seed.
Correct.
They were a 4 seed. So that's kind of a give or take game, but we just it's just tough. It's just really tough to go out and play, especially in that kind of environment against that team who's been there. They've won a couple national championships. Morningside has, so they're very familiar with the surroundings.
Rio finishes 20th in the country and 30-4 by way of record. And the young lady that we saw the picture of, Alexis Payne, there at the opening tap, Alexis actually earning honorable mention All-America honors.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Yes, and you know, she has a pretty neat story in that tore her knee up a few years ago down the practice, nobody around her, and she just goes down and has surgery. And last year really did not trust it, and I think you could see this year that she finally got trust and where she could play, and she dominated a lot of games.
Don't have a picture of him, but also on the men's side, Will Hill earning honorable mention All-America honors. Will was also part of the NABC NAIA Shoot and Slam competition that took place during the NAIA Division I men's basketball tournament. He reached the finals of the three-point shootout and unfortunately came up a point short, but again, another feather in the cap for you know, not only Will Hill as an individual, but the University of Rio Grande.
Right, and since they've been doing this three-point contest, we are the only school in the country that's had 2 people that have participated in this. And now I just lost his name. Legg.
Evan Legg.
Evan Legg. Evan Legg was the other first one who participated and stepped on a line. He was in the finals too. Stepped on a line, would have won. And Will Hill finished second. If they have 2 different shoot-offs is how it is, and from the first shoot-off going, he made the finals for the final 2. If you take those 2 together, he would have won over the individual he was against, but they go back to 0 when they get into the finals to start all over again. So it's a fun event. It was done in Kansas City. Correct. At the Memorial Coliseum there, where the NAI Division I has their national championships. And so it was good. It was good for Will and good for University of Rio Grande.
Another thing that's good for Rio athletics, how about the men's bowling team? They reached the sectional tournament, which there were 4, I think, 20-team sectionals. Correct. There were 80 teams that qualified for tournament play, and they took the top 4 from each of those 4 sectionals onto the national. Rio did not advance to the national tournament, but nonetheless finished 16th overall in the sectional, and given the fact, and we've talked about the program on the show throughout the course of the year, pretty good for a first-year program.
They're very pleased with how the program has progressed, and the idea of making that jump in your first year is almost unheard of. And so their recruiting is going well. They just both men on the men and the women's side. So you know they expect some big things next year. So we're at a point now where they think they're going to be hosting some home events. I don't know that you've ever covered a bowling event.
Why not?
That's right. That's right. We may even film this a little bit, you know.
Give me something different to do.
Something to do with that.
Hey, one other thing in terms of the winter sports season, and again, we don't have a photo of her, but Tiana Petty-Kraft, All-American in 2 different events, the high jump and the pentathlon at the indoor track and field national championships. And that is a young lady that when she wraps up her career later this spring, her name is all over that record board right now. It's probably going to be there for a long time.
They almost stopped changing the record boards because weekly she was updating those and beating her record that she had a week prior. So really an unbelievable athlete. It's just to watch her perform, she just is so easy. And that's what happens when it just looks like she's effortless in what she does. And of course, a year ago, she's the defending national champion in indoor high jump as well. So finished 3rd in that this year. And so you know, she's had a fantastic indoor season, now looking at that outdoor season.
Before we look to spring, one other thing. We talk about what all these kids do on the court and on the field, but we had quite a few kids that were also honored for their academic work, men's and women's basketball players. I think we had 5 that were named NAIA, DAC Stats, Scholar Athletes, and that's another thing, another feather in the hat to the athletic program as a whole.
Right, and I just think that absolutely give credit to our coaches. Two things.
Absolutely.
First, bringing people in with that in mind, you know, that's a goal of the student athlete, and as coaches overseeing that and making sure they're getting things done and getting it done in the classroom. It's important.
Busy time for spring sports here at the University of Rio Grande as well. We will start with our softball team, which has unfortunately slipped out of the top 25 for the first time, I think, since April of 2016. That does not mean they're having a bad season, though. They're 19-8. Of those 8 losses, 4 of them to teams in the top 25, 4 of them by 1 run, and they've also got 4 wins against ranked teams. So 19-8 as they head into a weekend series this weekend against West Virginia Tech, and they've had to battle some injuries. Of course, lost a lot of kids to graduation, but Coach Hammond and his squad keep on rolling along.
Right, they did lose quite a few individuals.
There's Kelsey Conkey on the screen right there.
But they returned 2 All-Americans, Kelsey Conkey being one of those.
She, by the way, the reigning River States Conference Player of the Week, 1 week after being the Pitcher of the Week.
Right, so we get Kelsey 2 more years. She's a junior, and so it's the idea of just having Kelsey on the field makes a difference. She is a difference maker, both at the plate and when she's not pitching, she's playing right field, and nobody runs on her in right field. So
you know, another thing to note, they're 19-8, and they've only played 4 home games. They've
that's
done
correct.
a lot of this by getting on the bus and making the long road trips.
And going south.
And going south. Yep.
So they've played a very, very good record. It has to be one of the top records or top schedules that's happened here in the country, because they've gone down and played anybody, anywhere, anytime, and it's going to
will travel.
Yeah, it will, and it will pay off for them in the end. I think you know, we're in the basically conference play now. We've got a few non-conference games in between here, but as that goes through, it'll pay off towards the end of the year.
Their next home game, by the way, is one of those non-conference games, Kentucky Christian, here for a doubleheader on April the 3rd. We switch to baseball. Baseball hovering around the 500 mark, although doing pretty well inside River State's conference play. They're 14-17 overall. They're 8-4 in league play, getting ready, weather permitting, to host IU Kokomo this week. And there's one reason that they've been good in conference play. That's Osvaldo Duran, the senior out of Guayanilla in Puerto Rico. But they've had a pretty good year, and again, Coach Warnemont had a lot of holes to fill on his team.
Well, and you know, you look at the pitching that happens in both softball and baseball. It's such an important.
Right.
And we've had, you know, the 1-run games have been right there, or it's been a 1-run game going into the top of the 7th or going into the 8th inning, and something happened. They get 2 or 3 little hits or bloops here and there, and those hurt. But again, Brad plays he travels south too. He plays an unbelievable schedule. Yep. That people do not want to play him in our conference. I guarantee that. The 500 record does not show how good this team really is. And you know, and they get caught up. You know, they catch up with those southern teams that are able to be outside all the time, and it will come. And Brad always has got them playing well during the tournament time.
Again, they, weather permitting, are scheduled to host IU Kokomo this week. We don't know all the rain in the schedule. After that, the next home game scheduled is April the 3rd against OU Chillicothe. I also, before we run out of time, want to get in outdoor track and field, who has started its schedule. Both the men and the women finished second last week at the UC Relays up in Charleston, and one young lady, Katie Browning, in the pole vault, was able to not only win that event, there as you see her from last weekend, but also reached an NAIA national qualifying mark with her effort up at UC. And on the men's side, Alex Nichols also reached an NAIA qualifying mark in the shot put. He was also named the field athlete of the week in the River States Conference. And 3 of the 4 track and field honors this week went to Rio Grande with Alex Nichols, who you see pictured. Natalie Seberg was the field athlete on the women's side, and on the men's side, the track athlete was Xavier Parker, who had a couple of first place finishes. Good start for Coach Willie and his squad.
And you know what they're looking for? They're looking for warm weather. I mean,
Aren't
the
we all?
sprinters and all the, they need to have warm weather. And you know, our field people, they operate easier in cooler temperatures than the sprinters and the distance people. And so it will come for them too. We, of course, in May, having our conference meet, and before that time, we will have other people qualify for the nationals, I'm sure.
They are also in action this weekend at a couple of different places with the Easter weekend coming up. Some will be participating on Friday at Otterbein University in the April Fool's Invitational, and then others will be competing at the University of Cincinnati on both Friday and Saturday. And with that said, we are out of time for this March edition of Eye on the Storm. We appreciate Tony Daniels for stopping by earlier, and also the Commissioner Michael Schell, and look forward to having another full show next month here on Eye on the Storm. For Jeff Lanham, Randy Payton saying so long, and we'll see you next month on Eye on the Storm.